Adventurer and writer Miriam Lancewood lived away from civilization for years. She lived like our ancestors, hunting and gathering. During our first interview in 2020, she talked about her adventures and her lifestyle. Now she's vegetarian again. In this interview, she explains why and the impact of vegetarianism on her health. Hi, Miriam. How are you? We talked for the first time 3 years ago. I checked before. Our first interview was in November 2020. And then we met like 2 years ago in France. You came to visit your parents. So I was very lucky to meet you in person. The first time we talked, it was an interview where we talked about your books. At the time, you had two books. The first one was Women in the Wilderness, and the second one, Wild at Heart. So yeah, for the people who watch us, if they want more details about your books, about your experience, living in the wilderness and so on, we talked about it in that interview. So I will put the link in description under this video and also in the comments. Yeah, so you wrote two books at the time. Now I think you had a third one, right?
Yes, I have just edited this book with Laurie King. So there's actually 10 authors and I'm one of them. So I have only one chapter. And the book is called Wilder Journeys and been published in America and the UK.
For people who are interested to read your books, they can go to your website, miriamlancewood.com. So please introduce yourself because I'm sure you will do it better than what I will do. So you can introduce yourself, and if you want, and then after that, I will start my questions about a totally different subject from what we talked last time.
Yeah. Okay. So my name is Miriam Lancewood, and my husband, Peter, and I have lived for 7 years in the wilderness of New Zealand. We left civilization in 2010, and we went into the mountains with not much more than a backpack and a bow and arrow. And we pretty much lived like our ancestors. We hunted and gathered plants as much as we could. We also had some basic food supplies, though, because there's not much more to eat up in the high mountains. Had we been on the seaside, there would have been much more food. But of course, that's where the people are. So yes, we lived in the wilderness for 7 years. And after that, we walked through Europe and Turkey. That was in 2017. And back to Australia and back to New Zealand, where I organized an epic female expedition. And after that, we came back to Bulgaria. And now we're living in a little off-grid shepherd cottage. Very basic, very small, but very beautiful among the forest and sort of clearings. And there's no fences here in Bulgaria, which we enjoy very much. So yeah, really? Since 2 years, we have lived here. And I go on little adventures. And we see what the future brings.
Cool. Yeah. So you don't have the same lifestyle than what you had in New Zealand now, right? Because it's very different in Europe, like the regulations for hunting and I guess just walking also is very much regulated in Europe compared to New Zealand, except that you said there are no fences in Bulgaria. I think that's awesome because here in France, it's fences everywhere. You really cannot go wherever you want. But so yeah, can you, before I start my questions, okay, because today I wanted to talk about vegetarianism. So this will be the main topic of this video, because you grew up as a vegetarian and I was very curious about that, but I will get back to that in a few moments. But can you just, before that, explain how is your life now in Bulgaria? Is it very different from when you lived in New Zealand? Because in New Zealand, it was like total freedom, hunting, gathering. Now how is it? What does your life look like in Bulgaria?
So in New Zealand, it's relatively easy to get a firearms license and a hunting license, and you can hunt all year round. Not so here in Bulgaria. I inquired, but it's very hard to get a firearms license. You have to speak Bulgarian for a starter. You have to do an exam. You have to pay lots of money. Your firearms license is only valid for 2 years, and altogether a little bit difficult. On the other hand, here is loads of herbs and wild plants, mushrooms, wild apples, cherries, just everything is around here. So you don't really need to go hunting. Well, I don't. And so therefore, I have reverted to being a vegetarian once again. And we've got a big vegetable garden here. And so we got loads of vegetables. So yeah, life is very different, more settled, and our food and diet is completely different from New Zealand. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm very interested in your life, what you did, what you do, because I am very interested in health and nutrition. This is what my YouTube channel is all about, and I am a naturopath. And regarding nutrition, I really follow the principles of Weston Price. I don't know if you've heard of him. Weston Price, he was a dentist who traveled around the world in the 1930s to find out why in America all Americans had a very bad dental health. They had lots of cavities. They all had crooked teeth. And he wanted to find out why they had such bad teeth, whereas tribes everywhere in the world who were living away from civilization had perfect teeth and perfect health. So he wrote a book about that, very, very interesting, where he collected that data from all the different tribes he visited. And what is really interesting is that all these tribes, they lived obviously in very different parts of the world with very different nature, very different foods, but they all had in common that they had no health issues whatsoever. They had perfect teeth. Crooked teeth didn't exist in these tribes. But when civilization came to these tribes, they started to degenerate, and same as the white people having the same health issues, pneumonia, cavities, crooked teeth, and so on. So it's a very, very interesting book, and to me it's the best book about nutrition. So basically what he discovered is that what made the health of people so bad was like artificial food, refined sugar, refined flour, anything that is not natural and whole foods. Amongst the different data he collected, he actually found out that the healthiest tribes he visited were the tribes that ate the most animal products. For example, the Maasai were the tallest people he ever met, the strongest people he ever met, and they used to eat much more meat than other tribes. Same for the Eskimos. They had very strong bone structure, and he noted that the most grains and carbs the tribes ate, the less healthy they were. They were still much more healthy than white people, because anyway they ate whole foods only, but still, so to him the most important nutrients were coming from meat and from animal fat. So I'm very interested in your experience, because you are real you are now living in the world of now, and it's always different from when you read a book or when you hear about something, and when you compare to something real that like the real experience of someone. So it's very interesting, because you, as you said, really used to live like our ancestors when you were in New Zealand. What struck me about you is that you are really strong. I met you in person, and you really are, I think, the strongest woman I ever met. You can see it in your physique. You have a very strong physique, very strong muscles. It looks like you have very strong bones also. You have perfect teeth also. You will tell us about that, if you did anything in your youth to have such a perfect teeth, not crooked, anything. And also you have a very strong jaw structure. And that was something that Weston Price really noted about the different tribes he visited. Like the strong jaw structure was really related to a very good nutrition during the youth, like during childhood of these people. So I was wondering, you have a very strong jaw structure, you look very strong, but you grew up as a vegetarian. And that kind of challenges what I believe regarding health and nutrition. So that was the topic I wanted to talk about today with you, about vegetarianism. My first question is, so do you confirm, right? You grew up as a vegetarian. I think your mother was a vegetarian. So you were vegetarian all your life until like the beginning of your 20s, when you decided to live in the wilderness, right? Can you tell us about that? Can you detail what you ate? What was your life when you grew up? What could explain such a nice bone structure?
Yeah, I think part of my strength is actually genetics. Even as a toddler, my muscles were quite defined. My mother is quite the same. So I've got a little bit of advantage there. But yes, we were not allowed to eat too much sugar. Not in extreme cases, on birthdays we had Coca-Cola and sweets and all that. But otherwise, not much at all. No, we could eat rice crackers and raisins. But every kid, of course, wants to eat sugar, but yeah. And we were indeed vegetarian. But my mum made loads with nuts and cheese. Nuts, cheese, butter, and milk. So certainly not vegan.
Cheese,
and loads of eggs and Indonesian food, as is common in Holland, like loads of peanut sauce. So there's a lot of, that's of course nuts and oil and that again. Yeah, and lots of olive oil and loads of brown rice. Other people used to call us the rice family, and it was always brown rice. Yeah, maybe that got something to do with it. And I remained vegetarian. I always said no animal need to die for me until I went in the wilderness, and every animal needed to die for me. But I started eating meat indeed when we went to live in the wilderness in 2010. Okay. So I was in my late 20s then.
So you never ate meat until your 20s? Okay.
No, basically none. And what I found is that when I started eating meat, my hair became a lot thicker and my fingernails became a lot stronger. And I think that's maybe a little bit less fat, but that could also be because of getting a little older. You lose your baby fat a little bit.
Right.
Maybe that got something to do with it. And of course, a lot of exercise. But admittingly, when I was in my teenage years, I did do pole vaulting and a lot of physical activity. So not eating meat, but eating loads of beans and lentils, which contains a lot of protein. I did do loads and lots of sports. Plus, I studied physical education. So it was almost an overload in sports.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, being vegetarian in all those years.
Yeah. So your main source of proteins was beans and lentils, and so can you give us an idea of the quantity, like of eggs, milk, cheese, beans, lentils, rice? Like, did you eat cheese and milk every day, or was it once in a while, or what was the proportion more or less of animal food and vegetable food?
Yeah. Bear in mind that 20 years ago, there was this whole idea that fat is bad for you,
right?
Because fat makes you fat. That's what everyone believed back then, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as I left my parents' place, I don't think I ate that much cheese because I believe that makes you fat. Now I don't believe that anymore. But so I would eat quite a lot of bread, lentils, always lentils and beans. And I always love nuts, so I loads of sunflower seeds on every meal, and maybe 2 or 3 eggs a week. Whereas now I would like to have an egg a day. Right now I always eat a raw egg in my food with the beans or with the lentils. It's lovely. It makes it very creamy. Tastes very good. Yeah. Back then,
but
just lots of vegetables.
So when you were a child, when you grew up, did you drink lots of milk or not so much?
Yes, indeed. Now that you mention it, we used to get milk from the farm, like raw milk.
That was going to be my next question, because raw milk is very different from pasteurized milk. Okay, so you had lots of raw milk?
Raw milk, but my parents did boil it though, so that is pasteurized, isn't it? Because they were afraid of any bacteria, so they didn't boil it. But nevertheless, it was, apart from that, it wasn't treated much.
Yes.
And then we made cream with it. I used to whip it up, and that's what we had on the yogurt every day. So loads of yogurt, that too, that we just bought in the shop. And I think Dutch children drink a lot of milk. That's why they're generally so tall, which I am not. I'm not tall, but yeah.
You
other
are
kids were.
regular size, right? How is your height?
166, which is very
Yeah,
small for Dutch people.
right. For Dutch people, yes.
Yeah,
But for me, it's normal.
yeah. For France,
Uh,
it's normal. Yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah, that's
So
right.
your mother was a vegetarian, and that's interesting too, because when you read Weston Price, he talks about the importance of the parents having to have a very good diet before conceiving, and especially women, but
Oh,
men also. And again, he talked about the importance of eating meat and animal fat before conceiving and during pregnancy for the woman to have strong children. But
yeah.
your mother, so she also was a vegetarian all her life, was she? Or
No, she grew up with meat. Only later in life, during the 70s, that was more popular to become
Mm,
vegetarian. Yeah,
okay. And when she was pregnant with you, she was vegetarian.
yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. So yeah, how was your health when you were a child? Did you have lots of sickness? Did you have cavities? Did you have crooked teeth? How was your health?
My health was very good. Back then, no one had allergies. Isn't that
Hmm.
interesting? None of the kids in my class had any allergies, nor did I. None of us were often sick, nor was
Hmm.
I. I had some holes in my teeth. They're a little bit soft, but never had much trouble. No. My parents believed we should brush our teeth twice a day with chlorine toothpaste. So that's what we did.
With
And the dentist also gives
chlorine, chlorine or fluoride?
fluoride.
Fluoride, yeah.
Sorry,
Okay, okay, yeah, yeah,
fluoride. Yeah,
yeah.
a
Okay.
fluoride. And we also have what they call a fluoride bite. So twice a year we used to go to
Oh
the
my.
dentist, and they have to sit there for 15 minutes with this fluoride thing. Yeah, all believed to be very, very good because the dentist told us so. Only later in life, I moved away from fluoride toothpaste. Yeah, and my teeth were not that good until Peter, my husband, explained to me to always clean teeth all day long with a bit of grass to get in between the teeth cleaned properly. So yeah, since then my teeth improved a lot.
And regarding fluoride, it's very interesting because it was like the thing at our time. We are more or less the
Yeah,
same age. You were born in 1983, right? And
yeah,
for me, it's 1985. So yeah, we are
yeah,
the generation where fluoride was very important for the teeth. And same for me. My
yeah.
mother was giving me fluoride pills to swallow every day.
Oh yeah, every day.
And yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And actually, it did something to my teeth, something negative, of course, because I really don't believe that fluoride is good for your health. I
Yeah,
actually made a whole video about that on my channel for people who would be interested about the dangers of fluoride. But for me,
yeah.
for example, I had this teeth that got white spots. It doesn't anymore because the dentist removed them a few years ago, but it got
Yeah.
white spots, and this is a sign of over calcification on the teeth caused by fluoride. And I
Oh wow.
had another teeth, another tooth, sorry, in the back that has brown spots, and that's also caused by over fluoridification.
Yeah.
So did you have things like that, like brown spots or white spots on your teeth, or?
No, but my sister had. Now that you mention it,
Hmm.
yeah, she had
Oh,
white
interesting.
spot on her front teeth.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's like that. That's the first sign of beginning of intoxication from fluoride. And then the
Yeah.
next step after that, that's when you get the brown spots, as I have.
Oh
So
wow.
that means you like it's a little worse. You
Yeah.
were a little more intoxicated with fluoride.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow.
that's interesting. So now, how are your teeth? Do you have healthy teeth? How is it?
Yep. My teeth are very good now. Also because of what I just mentioned, I'm constantly cleaning it with pieces of grass.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's also interesting because I have a video where I talk about dental health with Sushama. She's a health expert, but from the Weston Price Foundation community. The Weston Price Foundation community, we are all about nature and only following nature and natural things. And in that video, she explains that actually it's not necessary to brush your teeth. So I know it makes debate. And yeah, I wanted to interview her about that because myself, I stopped brushing my teeth beginning of 2019.
Wow.
And yeah, and I'm convinced that you don't need to brush your teeth to not get cavities. And she's an example of that. Sushama, she hasn't brushed her teeth for like at least 15 years or 20 years now. Me, it's been almost 5 years. I will make a video about that, an update video soon to talk about what happened with my teeth. So my teeth are healthy. It's just regarding my gums. They got more inflamed from not brushing my teeth, but I will detail that anyway in another video. But so anyway, you brush your teeth with like a stick. I think that's what they do in India. They use like a neem stick to clean between your teeth, right?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah,
and
it almost looks like a bit of a tick.
Okay, and you don't have any problems with your gums? They are not inflamed, they are healthy?
No, my gums are fine.
So when you grew up, you didn't have crooked teeth? You didn't need braces or anything, did you?
A little bit, and I got for 1 year just a plate braces.
But
was actually not necessary.
Yeah, okay.
And I hardly ever wore it, only at night. And then I got rid of it altogether. That was a total waste of money. Yeah, it wasn't really needed, but it was quite fashionable those days. Everyone had braces.
Yeah. And also those days it was very fashionable most dentists recommended to remove wisdom teeth. Did you have that surgery also?
Yes, a little bit later in life, only the top.
Yes. Oh, okay. Because they said you didn't have enough space in your jaw, right, to have the wisdom teeth. That was the reason?
I had the impression that the wisdom teeth were moving the other teeth forward.
Okay,
and
you felt that?
was moving a little bit. Yeah, then they took it out. And by doing so, she dislocated my jaw. Very painful. And for years, I had this click when I was eating. Click, click, click. Really quite loud. Yeah, very annoying. But it seems to be all right now again.
Okay. So this also regarding the work of Weston Price. So according to Weston Price, like if you grew up well, like with good nutrition and your bone structure is good enough, then you have a large jaw that allows all your teeth to develop normally, and it allows your wisdom teeth to have enough space to grow without disturbing the rest of your teeth. So so maybe you really needed that surgery because actually maybe your jaw was indeed not well formed enough, or maybe you didn't need it because at our time, again, like dentists were removing wisdom teeth of almost everybody, so I think it was just a habit they had. Okay, so
one major thing with my teeth is that I don't eat any sugar. And so I agree with you. Maybe I don't need to brush my teeth. Maybe I'm brushing the enamel off my teeth by doing so, because I don't eat sugar. But if I do eat something, I can feel immediately on my teeth this little layer of sticky plaque, or how do you call it?
Yeah, regarding that, when we talked about that with Sushama, so indeed, if you eat naturally, no sugar, nothing refined, or very little amount of your food that is refined, but if it's mostly whole foods, natural foods, that's the most important for the health of your teeth, and you won't get cavities if you eat natural. Whereas if you eat, of course, Coca-Cola and sugar and so on, it induces demineralization of your teeth. So what Sushama recommends, she recommends to not brush your teeth, because when you do, you disturb the bacterial balance in your mouth, and your bacteria are part of your body as they should. As we have bacteria in our gut, for example, it's important to have a microbiome in the gut, as we know, but it's also important to have it in the mouth. So that's one reason why she recommends to not brush your teeth. If you have a good diet, you don't need to brush your teeth because the bacteria in your mouth will be friendly. But she recommends to rinse your mouth with water after every meal, and to remove like the little pieces of food between your teeth. And also she recommends to do oil pulling. I don't know if you've heard of it, where you rinse your mouth for like 10-15 minutes with coconut oil or olive oil or whatever. The Indians do that regularly. She is originally from India, so I guess that's why she knows these things. And it keeps healthy teeth and also healthy gums. And that's basically what she recommends to take care of your teeth. Okay, so you said you started eating meat in your 20s. Do you remember how old were you when you started eating meat?
So that was in 2010. So 23 years ago. And I'm 40 this year. Yeah, so 27.
27, yeah, okay, that's quite late. So first of all, how was the transition? Because as you said, you didn't want to have animals dying for you. So it was mostly ethical, right? Your reason why you didn't want to eat animals. And how did you do the transition, like accepting the fact that you needed to eat meat? And actually tell us why you felt that you needed to start eating meat.
Well, first of all, my mom also said that animals get fed antibiotics and being kept in horrible places. So the meat that you're eating cannot be healthy.
Right.
So that's what I believe too. And I still believe that. So I'm still very reluctant to buy meat, factory meat. That is different from if you raise your own sheep or cows and eat that meat. At least you know that there's no medicine or whatever, whatever they put in those animals. But then we decided to live in a wilderness, and there is very little to eat at 1,000 meters altitude. And some berries in the right season, some plants, of course. But our main source of nutrition would be hunting. And also I wanted to learn how to hunt with a bow and arrow. That sounded just super cool. So I started to eat wild meat. And because I had no reference of what meat should taste like, I thought, okay, tastes quite good. Whereas people who are used to chicken from the factory, they think that possum tastes horrible. And wild goat is just inedible. So it was really good to have no point of reference. And I love the wild meat. And I may add that I think it's very healthy to eat meat as long as you eat all the organs, the ligaments, everything. Throw everything in a pot and boil it, and then drink the bouillon, the juice, and all the organs, including the brains. And I think that is a part of nutrition that the modern people are completely missing.
I totally agree with you. I made many videos about that, about the importance of eating the whole animal, and that's what our ancestors did. They didn't only eat muscle, they ate all the organs. That's very, very important to have the right balance of the right balance of amino acids, of fats. It's very, very important indeed. And I really recommend drinking bone broth, using the bones and getting the collagen from that. Indeed, you're right. Why do you think that, actually? Because not many people realize that. How did you realize it was important to eat the whole animal?
Yeah, it seems logical, because how do we get we get nutrition for our brain, for instance, but it must be much quicker to eat brains. The brains is good for our brains. It seems logical because we are a type of animal. And so we get those things quicker, I believe. But and our ancestors did the same. And it just makes total sense to not waste an animal after you killed it.
Of course. Yeah, because if you kill yourself an animal, you really have a lot of respect. I mean, that's what I feel, It's totally different, in my opinion, to buy a piece of meat in a supermarket where you are totally disconnected from that piece of meat. You don't actually see or realize it came from an animal. There's really this strong disconnection between our food and us now. Whereas when you kill it, or when you see the animal killed, then you that's my opinion at least, but you really feel connected, and you really feel thankful, and you feel lots of gratitude towards the animal. There's a totally different connection, in my opinion, when you kill it compared to when you buy it. And when you kill it,
exactly.
you really realize that you really have strong respect for nature and for the animal, and you don't want to
Yeah.
waste anything of it. You want to eat the whole thing. So that's part, in
Mhm.
my opinion, of respecting the animal. So it's not dead for nothing. It will feed many people for many days, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Plus, it tastes very good.
Mhm.
Even I bought some fish the other day, and the whole lot we just boiled. And I ate the brains and the eyes, and it tastes fantastic. And I
Mm,
believe that if you are in contact with your own body, that what tastes good is what your body needs. And
exactly.
so that's my
E-
little
Except
guideline for myself.
except now I think people have their taste buds completely out of whack, I would say, because people grew up on sugar and on
Yeah,
artificial flavors. So now I think for most people it's not really true anymore that what tastes good is good for your body, because of all the processed foods. It really
of
messed up
course. Yeah,
with our taste buds. But in
yeah.
nature,
And only go for
I
natural foods. Yeah.
yeah. So mentally, how did you overcome this mentality of not wanting to hurt animal to killing an animal? Because I think this must be hard to understand for lots of vegetarians or vegans. How can come from a place where you are vegetarian, where you don't want animals to die for you, and then what's the process in your mind that made you accept the fact that you needed to kill an animal?
Well, the sheer necessity, because we're getting more and more hungry in the wilderness. And
Mm,
also Peter, who really likes meat anyway, but I saw him deteriorating without eating meat. And then we started off in the late autumn. So soon we were finding ourselves in winter. It was very, very cold. And we discovered that we just wake up in the morning with hunger pains because we didn't have enough, protein to get us through the night because it was so cold.
mm,
So it was really clear that I should get into my hunting a bit more. And as soon as we had our first possum, we didn't wake up with hunger pains. So yeah,
mhm,
it's just sheer necessity, and also the encouragement of Peter to get some animals, and also well, that was our way of life at the time. We wanted to survive out there, and wanted to try this out. So that was completely part of our expedition, so to say.
mm. Yeah, so it was necessary to eat meat.
Yeah,
That's what you feel. Okay.
yeah.
And also in our other interview, you said that you believe that depending where you live, you don't necessarily need to eat meat, right? I think you were talking about like people in India, maybe they
Yeah,
don't need to eat meat because it's a hotter climate. Can
yeah.
you detail what you think about that?
Yes, indeed. I noticed that here, our diet is completely different in winter or in summer. Because people say, "Oh, what do you eat?" Like, what do you mean? Depends completely on the time of the year, of course. So in the
Mm,
summer, I go really well with just eating almost raw food, like everything out of the garden, all the fruits that we find, and of course supplemented with nuts, which only
mm,
comes in autumn, obviously. But we keep those nuts for all throughout the year, especially
mm,
walnuts. They keep very well. And in the winter, we eat loads of everyday beans and bread that we bake ourselves. And so in the winter, if there was wild meat, I would have eaten that then too. But in the hot summer, no, it's not. I don't feel it's so necessary.
Actually, it's the
Yeah,
same for me. I eat a lot of fats usually in winter, but now in summer I get nauseous much quicker because
yeah,
I think our body doesn't need so much fat because of the heat. That's what you were talking about before,
yeah.
when you woke up very cold and then you started eating animal fat and you felt warmer. So there's really a
Yeah,
connection, I think, yeah, between winter you should eat fat and summer you don't need to eat as much fat, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, you were talking about what you're eating now. So actually, your diet changed since you moved from New Zealand to Bulgaria and you
Yeah.
went back to vegetarianism. That's right?
Yeah.
Why did you get back to vegetarianism if you have eaten meat for many years before in New Zealand and also you felt some improvement in your health when you started eating meat? That's what you said, stronger nails, stronger
Yeah.
hair. Okay, so yeah, why did you go back to vegetarianism now?
Because I do believe that supermarket meat is not so good. I'm not sure if I do more improvement or deterioration with eating meat from a supermarket.
Mm,
Maybe I'm a little prejudiced because my mother would say the same. So I need to figure that out a little bit more. But just a couple of weeks ago, we've got a little dog now, and the dog hunted a deer, a very small one. And so I ate it, and I just felt so good with eating meat. And of course, I boiled the whole deer and got everything, including the brains and the tongue and all the organs. But then I realized, I really crave some of these things, that, like the organs, what I said before, the ligaments. So I do think I should put in a bit more effort to getting wild meat, maybe from other hunters. So I think it's very valuable. I just can't get it so easily here. But in France, if I lived in France, I would make friends with other hunters, and I would get the right meat from a friendly farmer. Then you know where the meat comes from.
Yeah,
I would do that for sure.
This is also my opinion, is that, of course, a healthy animal will give you health when you eat it, whereas an animal that grew up in a factory farm, fed with very bad food and antibiotics and vaccines and stuff like that, is not good. It's not as good. Of course, I'm not sure if it's better to not eat meat at all, to eat factory meat. I'm not sure about that. I guess I would still, like, if I had no choice between like no meat or factory meat, I would still eat some factory meat, but I would not eat the organs, just the muscles anyway. So I wanted also to ask you, so you grew up as a vegetarian, and many people now, meat has been demonized a lot for like 10 or 15 years now. Like, everybody thinks meat is bad for your health. Everybody thinks like you need to be a vegan to be the healthiest possible. And this is really not what I agree with. So my question, when you transitioned from being vegetarian to eating meat, did you see bad health effects of eating meat?
No, quite on the contrary. Once we try to live on meat alone, so we have no carbohydrates. And so we had a huge deer that we had to eat, and we decided not to eat anything else. And what happened is that we felt incredibly full, with no energy, like as though you drink lots of water, like your stomach is full. And of course, it's much better to eat some carbohydrates or something else with it. But I did realize that our whole society is based on quick carbohydrates and sugar and caffeine. You know, if you take sugar and caffeine out, the whole society would be different. People would act much slower. They would be slowing down. Your energy would be just totally different. But now, of course, it's very clear that my health improved with eating meat. I had not so many cravings because the sugar, as everyone who is watching this will know, that if you eat sugar, you, of course, get a dip afterwards, and then you need more sugar, and soon you're addicted. Your body is addicted, let alone the mind. So, I'm all for eating wild meat.
So from your experience, when you ate only meat and nothing else, you feel that's not good either, right? So what do you believe would be an ideal nutrition? Like, what proportion of meat, what proportion of fat, what proportion of vegetables, let's say?
Well, I think for some people it's very good to have a lion diet, like Jordan Peterson and his daughter, because of the allergies and whatnot. But for me personally, I like to have some carbohydrates to digest a lot, and some wild plants. So if you are in Europe and other parts of the world too, there are so many good wild plants to start with. Nettle got so much protein in it. It's a superfood. And it grows everywhere. So nettle and plantain and cleaver, you can just find anywhere. So those sort of plants is also a fantastic part of the diet. And much better. So instead of buying vegetables out of the shop that has been grown in greenhouses, just pick your own wild plants. Much cheaper and much healthier.
I'm totally with you. I have been also collecting wild plants to eat as often as I can. It's not always easy because you need to find a clean area where you can find wild plants. What do you think about the keto diet, where it's mostly protein and lots of fats?
Oh yeah, would be great. I even contemplated doing such thing, but I love fruit, and I think in a keto diet you're not allowed to have fruit. And we live basically off wild fruit. So we go out for dinner, as we call it, and we just go for a walk and we eat the cherries and the raspberries and the blackberries and all of these things, and apples and pears later in the year.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the keto diet can help many people, but I find it not natural at all to gorge on so much fat, because people following the keto diet, it's crazy. Like they put tablespoons of coconut oil in their coffee. They eat like butter, like if it's cheese. I mean, it seems totally not natural for me. And as we said, also, I really think it depends on the seasons. Some moments of the year you need more fat, some other time you don't need as much fat. So yeah, it's I believe that you need all the macronutrients to have a good diet: fat, meat, vegetables, carbs, in the right proportion. But
yeah, indeed. I think generally for people, the more different things you can eat, the better. And I think people are set like, yeah, I like this, and they eat it every day, all year round. They start with yogurt and fruit and muesli, and then have a sandwich and have a plate for dinner. But why not try all sorts of different things? I think the variety is the key, because you need trace elements in your body, and we're not getting that.
Yeah, and I think we are supposed to be opportunistic animals, eating what we find. And when you walk in nature like that's how we should live as nomads. I think humans originally are nomads, and they are supposed to, eat what they find on their way. And it's a huge variety that you can find in nature, especially if you move from one place to another. You will find different plants, you will find different animals. So indeed, I think we have a very restricted diet that is not so natural now. Especially also, as you said, like what we grow now is not natural. It's all hybridized. The vegetables we grow, they don't exist like that in nature. They are very different from the original ones found in nature. The vegetables we find now have much more sugar, even green vegetables, compared to their original wild counterpart. And
it would have been much more bitter products, and we hardly get anything bitter now. I was just reading a book called The Hidden Life of Trees. You might know it, from a guy called Holleben. And he describes that whatever happens to the tree, it's very important. Like a little bug comes and, might cause a disease, but get an antidote. And then that helps later on with such and such. And an animal like a cat would come and pick up the dust and put it near the roads, etc. Everything that happens naturally is important to it. And I thought, hey, us humans are the same. So what things don't happen to us anymore? I was thinking maybe a flea bite, right? Who gets a flea these days? Human flea. No one, right? But maybe that little bit of protein is helping us later in life with something like a cold. Who knows? And I was thinking, actually, everything natural is important. Like our ancestors would eat charcoal because of going along, cooking on the fire, or burnt wood, burnt meat, for instance, or eating dust, earth. All of these things that doesn't happen anymore. Maybe that helps us with fighting disease later on.
Yeah, I'm sure of that. Yeah. And I actually also wrote an article regarding about clay, and exactly, there are many tribes in the world eating clay like every day, or at least regularly eating the earth. Wow. It's very, very good for so many health aspects. Yeah,
indeed. Or maybe a mosquito bites, everything that we try to avoid, right? Mosquito bites, tick bites. Maybe ticks are good. Who knows?
So interesting, because I'm asking myself these questions nowadays, because now there are a lot of mosquitoes everywhere, and I was wondering also with tick bites, indeed, because you can see like some animals get ticks all the time, other animals don't. Like, for example, I have a friend, she has 2 dogs, and they have ticks all the times here, but my cat, no ticks at all. Why? And there was a time where my cat was filled with fleas, but that's when we lived in a city. But since that time, he never had fleas anymore. So same as you, I'm wondering, maybe there's a utility for that. Maybe because maybe actually the ticks or the mosquitoes or the fleas, when they bite you, they remove some dirty blood or something.
Who knows?
Maybe people who get more beaten than other people, maybe because they need it, or I don't know. That's a very interesting question also. Yeah.
Yeah, so we should not try to avoid everything that's happening to us, but say,
Right.
hey, maybe good for something. We just don't know what.
Yeah. Do you sometimes eat raw meat? What do you think about eating raw meat?
No, I haven't actually. Never did. Doesn't occur to me to do so. It feels more natural to cook it, but I don't know if
Really?
that's a part of the program or not.
Okay. Yeah. To
Except
me,
for organ meat, I have eaten raw liver. Raw
okay.
heart. Sorry. Yeah.
Raw heart. Okay. And
Yeah.
why do you think it's? Why do you feel it's more natural to eat raw organ meat compared to muscle, for example?
I went hunt. My first hunt, I went with my friend, and he said, "Oh, this is the first time you kill a pig. Now you have to eat the heart. It's part of our tradition." So I did.
Okay, so it's the only time you ate raw organs? Just one time? How was the experience? Was it weird? How did you feel eating the raw heart?
Well, surprisingly similar to cooked because it's still warm.
You know what? This is actually what I believe. I think we cook because we now eat cold animals and we are supposed to eat. That's what I think. I'm not sure if that's true or whatever, but to me, it seems more natural to eat raw meat, but freshly killed. So it's supposed to be warm when you eat it. And I believe maybe that's why we cook the meat, to copy the warmth we are supposed to get when we eat raw meat, you know?
Oh, never thought of it. I always thought it's easier to digest if we cook it, and that is what gave us humans a head start. That's why we don't need to eat all day, because we can cook food.
So
but, who knows? You might be right.
There's a debate regarding that, but the more I research about that, the more I talk also to people who follow the primal diet. It's people who eat everything raw, including raw meat and raw organs, raw fat. I believe that meat is actually made to be eaten raw. I think it's very easy to digest raw, easier than cooked. For example, me, when I eat a raw steak, like a steak tartare, compared to when I cook it, I feel that when I eat it raw, I don't even feel it in my digestion. It's like nothing happens because it's so easily digested,
Wow.
So,
and what does it taste like?
So the taste is a little weird because we are not used to it. We grew up eating all meat cooked. So I think you need some time to get used to it. Especially me, when I was young, I hated meat. I didn't like the taste of it, and it had to be very, very cooked for me to be able to eat it. And if I saw a little bit of blood, I was disgusted. And so I came from that background. It was very hard for me to eat meat. So now eating raw meat, mentally it's a process. But really physically, I can feel that it's healthier. So I believe, regarding cooking, I believe that we are supposed to eat animal food raw because it's the easiest on digestion. And we are supposed to cook some foods that are not edible in their raw form, such as legumes, such as grains, such as potatoes and stuff like that. These things, well, potatoes, they are edible raw, but the other things I said, you cannot eat them raw. And that, I think, in my opinion, that's why humans started to cook, to be able to digest things that are not digestible normally if you don't cook them. So I believe that the things we are supposed to cook, like the grain and so on, are famine foods, like foods that you would eat when you don't have anything edible to eat, like meat. This is what I believe. There's nothing really, I don't say that because I read it in studies or whatever. That's just my opinion. But raw meat has all the nutrients and so on. So I believe it's here. And regarding parasites and so on, that's another question. But as we said, regarding ticks and fleas and mosquitoes, I actually believe that parasite can help. So, but that's another debate. But I know many people who have a raw meat diet and no problem at all. On the contrary. So
wow. Oh, interesting.
So when you stopped eating meat and you went back to being vegetarian, did you see some health effects, positive, negative?
Not so much, because we are still collecting so many wild herbs.
Okay.
If I would go back to what they call a normal diet, I think I would deteriorate quite quickly.
Okay, so you feel that not eating meat but eating wild plants is
Yeah.
enough to have good health.
Yeah, and lots of eggs, of course, and
Eggs.
raw milk and those sort of
Okay.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, if you still have some animal products. Okay, and do you
Yeah.
believe that a vegan diet could be a healthy diet?
Maybe not for me though, but you have to put in a lot of effort. And if I was to be a vegan, I would really study in India how the vegans there would prepare their food, and they use a lot of substitutes for things. Yeah, that's not easy. It's a whole study.
In India, they are actually not vegan. They consume some animal products, right? Like milk and stuff like that, no?
Yeah, that's right. I think some part. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the Ayurvedic, study the Ayurvedic tradition. Yeah, that's right. And most of India has lots of animal products. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they actually they don't eat meat, but they drink milk. It's part of
Lots of milk.
Ayurveda actually, butter and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the Jains in India, they have a different diet again. They
Okay.
don't want to take anything, but still maybe milk. I don't know. Anyway, I would study a great deal.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And last question, maybe, do you think meat is bad for the spirit? Like here, many people believe that if you eat meat, you cannot be spiritual.
Yeah, I think it's total nonsense. That I think we should reconnect with our instincts, and spiritual people now, it's so, yeah, spirituality is now linked to being very soft, not strong physically. You never see a bodybuilder who is spiritual, right? It's all sort of thin, weak people who are spiritual. That's the ideal image. And who are not eating meat and who are vegans. Yeah, I don't know how that link has ever been made. If you think of the shamans in the past, they ate meat, they were very spiritual, and they're very strong. So I don't know
Exactly.
how this has come into
Every
being.
time someone tells me that, like, oh, okay, you eat meat, but maybe because you are not spiritual enough or you are not connected to the spirituality, I want to tell them, okay, so the Indians, the American Indians, you know, we know that the American Indians,
Yeah.
they were very spiritual, you know, they had a strong connection with the spirits and so on, and they
Yeah.
lived mostly of bison meat, you know, so how
Yeah.
can you make this connection? Like, if you want to be spiritual, you don't eat animals. Yeah, me neither. I don't know where it came from. So that's
It's
funny.
really interesting, the whole link to spirituality. Also, I'm making some YouTube content these days, and I got one of myself hunting, and I thought, I find that hunting a very spiritual practice, and maybe I should put some very spiritual music underneath. And then I thought, you know what? No, I don't. I'll put rock music underneath. And that rock music is also not spiritual, right? But why? Isn't that energy? Isn't spirituality also energy? So spirituality is now really very confined, and it almost becomes a dogma. And that's why I don't want to be part of that. I find myself spiritual, but I don't belong to this spiritual group, not at all.
Yeah,
For that reason.
Yeah, and in one video you were saying that actually for you, hunting is like meditating, right?
Yeah, indeed. You have to stop thinking in order to hear, because otherwise you only hear your own thoughts. So in order to be part of nature, you have to meditate in a way.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, so it's great that lately I saw that you made much more videos on your YouTube channel, shorts, where you share your point of view on all these subjects. It's really, really interesting to have your insights, because not many people live the way you live. So it's always interesting. And yeah, I encourage everyone to go watch your channel. And by the way, do you have the plan of writing another book?
Not yet. First have to have some adventures, but yeah, maybe in the future.
And actually, what are your future plans?
I'm training right now to go on an expedition with the authors of Wilder Journeys. And we go in a team to the Himalayas and climb
Wow.
3 mountain passes over 5,000 meters. And we'll be away for 2 months. And we go without porters and guides and go by ourselves. So that will
Wow.
be a fantastic adventure. And we go soon in August.
Cool. And will you write about it, or will you film yourself? How can we follow you in this adventure?
Yes, we will take cameras. We get sponsored cameras and GoPros and all. So we will make some content for YouTube. Yeah, there's a
Okay.
Miriam Lancewood in the wild.
Cool. Okay. And just last question: How is doing Peter? How is he?
Yes, Peter is doing really well. For
Cool.
him, it's good to stay a little bit more in one place and
Mhm.
just enjoy the garden. And we go for walks, not with a backpack anymore. But yes, he's doing good.
Cool. Okay. Very nice to hear that.
Very good.
Okay. I will let you go with your day. Thank you so much for spending 1 hour with me. Thank you so much, and see you maybe next time.
Thank you so much for having me.